This video is going to discuss how the flood saved humanity multiple times. This contains Halo spoilers from both the books and the game. Now for the rest of the video, I'm going to assume you know about the flood and their precursors. If not, here are some YouTubers talking about it. I want you to take in consideration the title and put the events of the Halo timeline in that perspective. You might be thinking I'm crazy, but let's start from the very beginning. Or, well, in this case, the end. The flood was released from Installation 04. They proceeded to infect the center of strength of a covenant, High Charity. If High Charity survived, then humanity would be no match for the covenant, even with the elites. At the very least, the covenant would be able to activate their rings with the forces of High Charity behind them. The flood then went to Earth to go to a portal to the Ark, with seemingly all their forces, where the prophets happened to be planning on destroying all life in the universe. Then the flood decides to be like, oh no, how could we, a hive mind that is made up of a body of a dead god, with untold millennia of experience, who also outsmarted the most advanced species in the universe, not foreseen this trap of essentially putting all your forces in one spot. Forces which are best utilized when they are spread out, as a single flood spore is said to destroy a species or a planet. So why didn't the hive mind send smaller forces to unguarded worlds or population centers? Well, you could say that they did. They did send some forces to Mars after all, and places like that. Places that had a great deal of defenses and were ready for an attack from the Covenant or otherwise at any moment, which would be hard to take in the first place. It's almost like the Gravemind didn't expect to take them at all. It's also not like the flood had any other targets in the entire universe, or that they knew of a different locations of a different homeworlds of a covenant, even after obtaining all the knowledge of the millions or billions of covenant inhabitants in High Charity. So what, they could have killed untold billions if they wanted to, probably destroy humanity and every other species. So why didn't they do it? Let's quickly go to the past and answer a simpler question. If a flood is trying to save humanity, then why didn't they save ancient humanity? Well, here's the thing. They did. Before the Forerunner human war, tensions were at an all-time high. Humanity proclaimed themselves as the true heirs of the mantle, to which anchored the Forerunners a great deal. War was so inevitable that humanity made an alliance with the prophet species. The flood simply had humanity start the war with the Forerunners when they had infected a Forerunner world, and framed them as the aggressors. How would they know humanity would react like this, or even the Forerunners? How did they know humanity would destroy an entire world of another civilization, provoking war? Well, they lived with humanity as pets for quite a long time, and they also infected humans themselves, so they know how they think. Considering how the Forerunners tried to exterminate all the Precursors, even when the Precursors didn't fight back, probably meant that they would be aware of how the Forerunners would react. You might be screaming at me, so why would they do this at all? Why attack humanity in the first place? After all, this would cause humanity's defeat. Let's start with the first point, why they attacked humanity. They did it for two reasons. 1. To get enough biomass to begin their revenge against the Forerunners, and to make everyone think the flood is an enemy to all creation. And 2. To make the Forerunners think that humanity has a cure. For the first point, despite destroying a large amount of humanity, the flood didn't continue. They got the biomass they required to continue on with their plans. The biomass being from humans was simply a necessary evil for the benefit of the greater humanity in the long run. It would also be very suspicious that a flood wouldn't have attacked humanity. If a flood didn't attack humanity, both humanity themselves and the Forerunners would use this to conduct war with the flood, sending human soldiers and military, severely undermining the true objective. This point will make further sense later on. Now on to the second point. When the flood left humanity, the Forerunners and also humanity themselves thought they came up with a cure, meaning they couldn't wipe out all of humanity, to which they were going to do. How do I know they were going to wipe out humanity? Besides the Forerunners doing the same thing to their Precursors? Well, even though they thought humanity had a cure, they still exterminated most of our species, and proceeded to devolve what remained. They then used what remained to essentially find a cure for the flood, subjecting innocent people to cruel experiments. The Forerunners weren't exactly as benevolent as most people think they are. The point is that the Forerunners could not simply destroy all of humanity because they needed them for what they thought it was secure. But the Forerunners devolved humanity, you say, so did it not go as the Flood planned? After all, how is devolving humanity good for humanity? Well, believe it or not, everything has been going exactly as planned. When humanity became devolved, you could almost find it funny, considering the Precursors did that to themselves constantly. So the Precursors and the Flood may not view it as a bad thing, quite the opposite in fact. By making humanity devolve, they were closer to experience what the Precursors felt, something that not even the Forerunners experienced it. Well, why couldn't the Forerunners experience it, even if they were considered worthy? Well, the Forerunners had castes, which made them limit their experience they may have in life. This is our current understanding of their caste system. You could either be a builder, which is the highest ranked, a miner, which is the second highest ranked, a life worker, which is the third highest ranked, a warrior servant, that's the fourth highest ranked, or an engineer with the fifth highest ranked. There's also the Sudizel, which is an unknown ranked. Therefore, you could only experience things related to that caste, severely undermining your potential and experience you may get. Due to the caste system, your experience and potential is going to be severely limited. This caste system has also been part of a Forerunner culture for millions of years, and it was obvious that they weren't planning on changing it. When you would look at humans, this wasn't the case. There wasn't a caste system that we were aware of. Furthermore, the Forerunners and their castes had their DNA altered to better fit their duty within it, and therefore it can be changed, it can't evolve. They had Gias, which robbed them of free will, replacing the brain or conscience with a former Forerunner, destroying the potential and free will of another sentient being, as well as that they would experience, all for the greed of another. They also wouldn't let anyone else have a shot at having the mental responsibility. Something that the Precursors themselves were looking for. In essence, they became stagnant, the opposite of what the Precursors wanted. Actually, they were the exact opposite of everything the Precursors stood for. They were arrogant, rash, unloyal, and very controlling. Now let's compare that to humanity. Humanity didn't significantly alter their DNA compared to the Forerunners. They were still evolving. Their genetics had better potential than that of the Forerunners.
Their gene plan could have surpassed our own.
The Forerunners themselves said that ancient humanity found gods in everything. This is very similar to how the Precursors themselves believed that everything was alive. As you may remember, the Precursors believed in a living universe. Humanity was willing to admit failure and destroy themselves for the well-being of others and the universe at large. Oh, and they also had to nuke their own home system, which had their capital in it. Is everything starting to make sense? Well, everything's going to become even more clear. You could even make an argument that the Precursors let themselves be exterminated by the Forerunners to give humanity a chance to become like them. After all, the Forerunners themselves admitted that the Precursors could destroy them at any time if they really wanted. They kinda just let the Forerunners do it. Following the theory that the Primordials and the Flood are the same, and assuming that the powder wasn't corrupted and fulfilled its purpose, we can then assume when the Precursors became dust and infused with the common pet at the time, the Furu, they felt new experiences. Maybe they liked being treated as the equivalents of cats and dogs, eating whatever they want and having pets or snuggles for days. That's not a bad life, to be honest. Maybe having pets was a foreign concept to their Precursors, or that was how they viewed all other species. Maybe they used this to see how well ancient humanity treated other species, and it confirmed that they should have a mental responsibility because of it. So when the extinction of their companions, creations, or pets arose, they tried to prevent it. But the Flood is terrifying, you say. How could something that looks like this be benevolent? Well, let's talk about the Flood's form. The Precursors, and by extension the Flood themselves, could decide to be any form, and they decide to be a grotesque monstrosities that are the embodiment of death, that a simple touch of their undead form will kill you in the most horrible way possible, and that's if you're lucky. You could even see this with the true combat forms of the Flood. They're just doing this to make everyone repulsed by them, and not think of them as anything more than a devouring swarm. You might say, why does this matter? The Flood is basically defeated, and if not, both humanity, the banished, and the endless most likely not to deal with them. But UNSC or ONI even sent teams to the Ark to try and find any remnant of a Flood, and they couldn't. Well, here's a couple counter-arguments. The Flood pretended to be dead for thousands of years from both ancient humanity and the Forerunners. They could probably hide from a few Oni agents. In Halo Wars 2, at the very end, a Flood is also revealed. There's also signs of a Flood appearing in Halo Infinite as well. Why would they want to save humanity in the first place? I'm quickly going to go over this, and I might go back to it at a later date, but I have two theories. One of them being is that they wanted a companion, but not just any companion, a companion that could understand them. Who knows, they might be really lonely. My second theory is that they wanted someone to take their place before they go to the next tier of civilization. But you're gonna say, hey, the Precursors were ranked 0, the highest. But here's the thing, they were the highest that we are aware of. There may be another higher rank of civilization. To wrap things up, all the actions of a Flood end up helping humanity in the long run, and I believe that is very intentional. The Flood destroyed High Charity because it was the greatest threat to mankind. The Flood didn't destroy any of the Covenant's homeworlds because destroying an entire species before they could mature isn't their way. The Flood purposely didn't attack many of humanity's weak spots. This is seen when they attacked only heavily defended worlds, ignored population centers, and let themselves be destroyed on multiple occasions. The Flood tried to convince everyone that they are a threat and not an ally to anyone. This is because it ran counter to what they were trying to portray themselves as. We also discussed why would they do this. In conclusion, everything's going according to plan. The true heroes of the Halo universe are the Flood and or Precursors, and we should obey them without a doubt, and let them free us from the physical form. That's right. If you don't agree with me, feel free to go convince me otherwise. Just go to the following locations. Go to the Ark, says go a few kilometers underneath the surface, you'll find me, don't you worry about it. If you can't find me there, then go to the installations, aka Halo Rings. Then go to the containment centers within them. Don't worry, I'll take it from there. I'll be right behind you, you can trust me. In fact, everyone that sees this should just go there. Of course, not before telling as many people as possible. Except maybe Oni, don't tell Oni. Not that they would find you there if they tried. I would like to thank Gravemind for the generous sponsor of Enlightenment. Please like and share this video with the nearest smart AI. To be honest, I just can't wait until Halo 420 comes out, and we'll play as Master Chief, who somehow obtained Tier 0 technology, and is trying to fight a reincarnated Precursor or something. Fun fact, Master Chief is basically immortal because of his prior augmentations. As long as he doesn't die from any other means, this means that Master Chief does not age. Halo could go on literally forever. Feel free to correct me if I got anything wrong in the comment section or just want to talk about theories. Next theory is going to come up next week.